Hi, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. Let's talk about charities and scammers. I'll have more in just a moment. Well, as you can see, it's a lovely day here at the beach, but the world is not always a lovely place. In fact, there are a lot of people who try very hard to make it an ugly one. And one of those types of people are scammers. Now, right now, there are a lot of operations going on to aid the people in Syria and in Turkey who have been severely wiped out by this large earthquake. And it happens as well in things like the Katrina disaster, the Katrina hurricane, and some of the hurricanes down in Florida, like Charlie. What happens is that the scammers go out there and they will go to their bank, or sometimes not even go to their bank. Sometimes they'll just set up an LLC and call themselves the Hurricane Charlie Relief Foundation, let's say. Now, I don't know if that's a real entity or not. In this case, I'm using that name as an example because we're going to spell Charlie Ley instead of IE, the way it is spelled, I think, for the hurricane. And what these guys do is they set up this supposed foundation and they spell the name just a little bit off from the way it's supposed to be spelled. So Hurricane Charlie with an IE becomes Hurricane Charlie with an LEY. Now, I think the reason that they do that is so that they don't come up on the FBI or anybody else, any law enforcement radar. But the bottom line is they then buy these things called sucker lists. Now, a sucker list is essentially a list of people who have donated to charities and other organizations in the past. And these lists are available for not a whole lot of money from a lot of different entities. And then these people use these lists to email and call and solicit funds for their supposed charity. And then they run right to the bank and go buy themselves a Mercedes. Sometimes they get caught, oftentimes they do not. Often what will happen is the corporation or the LLC will dissolve about 6 weeks after the tragedy or the event leaves the news. It will dissolve itself and the people who owned it will have suddenly changed names and no longer be at the addresses where the foundation was supposed to be. And as a result, even if law enforcement is interested, they're probably not going to be able to find them. And the money that you sent didn't help a single person who was a victim of the hurricane. And as a result, there are all kinds of ways that you can set up a false charity. You could set it up, for example, with the victims of Syrian earthquake and simply misspell Syrian or Syrian. You could call it the Syria Earthquake Foundation, and instead of SYRIA, spell it SYREA. And in many cases, even though it's misspelled, people will say, oh, geez, those poor people over in Syria, and they'll send money. But there is a way to protect yourself, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Reputable charities all file what is called an IRS Form 990. Now, the IRS Form 990 is what a 501c3 organization files in order to show that it is a legitimate 501c3 organization. And for those of you who don't know, that's from 26 USC section 501c3, which provides for not-for-profit corporations being non-taxed, so that when you make a contribution to a 501c3 charity, it is non-taxable. But of course, if you make a donation to Billy Bob sitting in a trailer outside of Tulsa, who is simply using your money to fund his meth-fueled lifestyle, it is not a tax-deductible contribution. But that doesn't stop the people who do this kind of thing. They actually get a kick out of beating the government supposedly at its own game. So because they have to file, these organizations, the legitimate ones, have to file a 990, all of those 990s are available and can be viewed and can be downloaded from the IRS, assuming, of course, that someone knows to do that. Well, there is at least one organization that does know how to do that. It's called Charity Navigator. And Charity Navigator gives a score between 1 star and 4 stars with regard to how an organization performs and how it uses the donations that are obtained. Now, a lot of organizations, a lot of even legitimate 501c3 organizations, as we'll see here in a minute, a lot of them will actually use professional fundraisers to go collect money. The GOP and Democratic Party use professional fundraisers. The NRA uses professional fundraisers. A lot of organizations use professional fundraisers. Well, a professional fundraiser works off a percentage of the amount of money that they get, very much the way a contingency lawyer works off an amount of money that they get in a settlement. So what you find is that the more efficient operations have a very low administrative cost. Well, when you're paying 20% of what you are collecting from the public in the form of donations over to a professional fundraiser, at the best, you can have an 80% efficiency rating. Ideally, when you give the money to the organization, you want 100% of your money to go help the people that it's supposed to help. Now let's take a look here at the American Respiratory Care Foundation. Full disclosure, I have been a member of the American Respiratory Care Foundation's Board of Directors. The American Respiratory Care Foundation's Charity Navigator score is 4 stars and it rates 100%. In other words, the money that you give to the ARCF is money that is going to go towards supporting their mission. In the American Respiratory Care Foundation, its mission is to fund medical research related to pulmonary disease and also to provide scholarships and grant funding to respiratory care professionals, whether those be physicians, physician's assistants, or board-certified registered respiratory therapists, degreed respiratory therapists who engage in research that is published. They fund a lot of that research through grants and other mechanisms. They also put on, for example, a seminar for the journal Respiratory Care, which is the Respiratory Care Journal is a publication of the American Association for Respiratory Care. And that journal is a scientific journal that publishes scientific research. And it is very difficult to get published in that journal because the peer review criteria are very strict. But the bottom line is that the Respiratory Care Foundation supports that effort through funding the research. Now, when I say funding the research, does that mean paying the researchers? No. What that means is, in most cases, buying equipment, buying testing material, providing the cost for tests that are done at a hospital in order to fund the research. But generally speaking, no individual benefits personally from an ARCF donation. And that's the way it should be. In fact, that's the law. The law actually requires that no private inurement take place. And private inurement means somebody getting the personal benefit of the charity or the 501c3 foundation's money. So that's a little bit of inside baseball with regard to how Charity Navigator works in terms of setting up its evaluation of an organization. They use that Form 990 filed by the IRS, and they look for organizations that are efficient. Now let's look at a couple here who are not particularly efficient. If you are looking at any of these, you are probably not going to be getting the full value for the money that you give. You are not going to be getting the full value, in meaning that you are not going to be supporting their mission. You are going to be supporting the people who created this organization and its mission. These kinds of low scores are an indication that you're probably wasting your money giving it to them. You want to look for organizations that have an 80 to 85% or better Charity Navigator rating. And of course, 100% is the best you can get, and those are the organizations that you want to give to. Whether your mission is to support things like organizations for gun safety, like these, or whether it's to support cancer research, whatever your belief is and however you want to support a foundation or a charity, Charity Navigator can give you a window into how well that charity does at protecting the money that you give to it. In addition to Charity Navigator, there is another organization that offers some kind of rating system with regard to certain charities, and that would be Consumer Reports. As you can see here, they have rated certain charities with regard to cancer research, ones that are very good on the left side and ones that are not so good on the right side. And obviously, you want to give your money to the place where it will do the most good, and not the most good for the people running the foundation, the people who are benefiting from the foundation's work. In other words, you want to support that child at St. Jude's Cancer Research Facility. You don't really want to pay, for example, a pharmaceutical executive's salary in order to support the work of a foundation that is primarily oriented toward supporting a particular pharmaceutical company's work. Charities are an essential part of what makes America great. Foundations and organizations that act to serve the public good and do so without any expectation of making a ton of money at it, but rather taking that money and doing good with it, those are the best of us. And those are the kinds of people that I know I want to support, and I suppose that you want to support those people too. So you can use the Charity Navigator system to do that. That's all I have for you today. Not as long a video as I often make, but I think it's important to let people know where their money goes and to be careful where you send your money if you are trying to do good. Charity Navigator is a way to do that. This is not a sponsored video. I have never had a relationship with Charity Navigator other than when they rated the American Respiratory Care Foundation when I was on its board. I just wanted to clear that up in case you were thinking I was trying to push this particular website. I'm not. There's also a website called GuideStar that will allow you to evaluate charities and also works off of the Form 990. Both of those are more or less interchangeable, and both provide you a good index as to how effective or efficient a particular charity is. If you have any questions about this or anything really, please leave them in the comments down below. Like, share, subscribe. Look up your charities, your favorite charities on either GuideStar or on Charity Navigator, and let me know if any of you are surprised by what you find. Thank you again for watching, and remember to be kind to people today. Have a marvelous day. I'll catch you on your next time. If you like this video, here are a few others you might try, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a terrific day, guys.